Yes, perfect. Welcome, Karima the Dreamer. How you doing? Come on in. This is the Wednesday workshop. Today's topic is hair, as you can see. And we're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. I want you to introduce yourself. Say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. So if you did not see my story from today, you might not know that this is what I'm calling the season 1 finale of the Wednesday workshops. So I won't be offering any more Wednesday workshops for the rest of 2020. However, the previous ones will still be available for recording, and I will bring them back at some time in the near future. And of course, I'll still be on social media in general, posting regular posts and maybe even doing like a periodic live if I'm called to do it. But in terms of the official weekly scheduled Wednesday workshops, this will be the last one of 2020. So it's very special to me. I've really enjoyed these. They've been the highlight of my week, since March. And so I do look forward to bringing them back. I am trying a new feature on Instagram, which is kind of cool, where you can share images. It's not a new feature, it's just that I've never used it before. Hey folks, come on in. Good to see y'all. From England, online primary teaching. Well, that's really cool. Welcome from England. It's evening over there. How's the weather where everyone is? I know here in the US, we're having hurricane weather, my hometown and the surrounding region. So I hope you all are staying safe wherever you are, evacuating if necessary, the whole nine. A couple of announcements before we start talking about hair. Remember that these are always interactive, and so I definitely want to hear some of your hair stories, the good and the bad, right? The positive hair stories as well as the traumatic hair stories. Hey JB, how are ya? So that bad bee from Serendib is posting on Instagram about Anthony McClain being executed by Pasadena Police Department, and that there's not enough press coverage of his death. So there's another name that we have to honor being wrongfully executed by police. So yeah, we'll say everyone's names as well as all the names we'll never know, right? Whose deaths were not caught on camera, for example, are covered up in other ways. Hey Michelle, welcome. Sunny where you are? Well, that's really good. It's sunny where I am too. I think I'm just north of the predicted path of the hurricane. So, all right. So other announcements, like I said, this will be the last Wednesday workshop for 2020, but you won't miss me. I'll still be on Facebook and Instagram for sure. I'll still be posting content, and there are other projects coming up. So I'm going to be going into the planning phase for next year's writing contest, and I hope to make that bigger and better than ever as usual. The Patreon page is it's already live, so you can go there and see what's to come, but the official programming starts September 1st. So I'm really excited about that. I've come to realize that writing affirmations is like writing poetry for me now. So it's like the new poetry for me. I love writing affirmations. Welcome, folks. Be sure to say hi and let me know where you're tuning in from. So there'll be monthly affirmations and activities, kind of similar to what I'm doing here, and then also weekly affirmations and activities, and then a monthly live Zoom session for people who are members to do a check-in and have more accountability. So the Patreon page it's for people who just want to be patrons of Colorism Healing and, support the work, but it's also for anyone who wants a more focused to do more focused work on their own understanding and healing about colorism and things like hair, and to kind of have a community where we can be accountable and have more specific support, right? And then, so I think those are the big announcements. The upcoming themes for the Patreon, this in September, it'll be higher learning. And then ancestral legacies, gratitude, and then vision statements in December to close out the year. All right, folks. So some folks might be wondering why I'm on the small screen. I'm tuning in from contemporary Sri Lanka. Oh, really cool. Hey, from Sri Lanka. I don't know if I've ever had a viewer from Sri Lanka yet. Rancho Cucamonga, California. Oh, that's fun to say. Coffee and counseling. I like that screen name. Hello, welcome. So I'm using this screen to share images from the phone, right? So part of my discussion about hair is going to include some images of me and my hair journey, right? So you get to see a little bit of that. But when you share your an image on Instagram, it makes your video smaller. So what is it about hair, folks? You see, I'm wearing my hair just out, natural today. I washed it not too long ago, right? And so I'm thinking about hair, specifically from the Black experience today. And we know there are terms that have come to light like hairism and texturism, right? Hey, welcome, come on in. And I also think that there are other features and aspects of hair that we can discuss besides just the texture of it, right? So I'm going to start with a little story, right, about me. And let me see. Let me go big for this. All right. So I remember, so I was never one of the people who wanted to have lighter skin, right? That was not one of my personal struggles. I never wanted to bleach my skin tone per se. But I used to want long, straight hair, right? Can anyone relate? Hey, Sarah, how are you? Mixed Bloom Room, welcome. So I remember one time saying a really fervent prayer at night, kneeling with my hands clutched, praying to God that I would wake up the next day with long, straight hair that cascaded down my back. I remember this moment very clearly. Hey, Jendelle. And I went to bed that night, you know, like, okay, this is it. I get to wake up with long, straight hair. And instead of waking up with long, straight hair, I had a nightmare that I woke up with long, straight hair, but that it was monstrously matted and deformed into this like big ponytail, and I couldn't comb it out, right? So I look back on that now as my subconscious telling me in a very nightmarish way that my longing, my desire for that long, straight hair was a distortion, right? Was a form of a monstrosity, right? My desire to be something other than who I am, right? So I, grew up though, like, okay, well, thanks a lot, God, for giving me a nightmare instead of giving me what I asked for. I was really young when this happened. And so I was also the kind of girl, I would put like Mardi Gras beads on my ponytail, or I would attach like old t-shirts to my ponytail so that I could feel the weight of the hair, and be able to like swing it over my shoulders. And people are saying they can relate to that. Mixed Bloom Room says, good, I can totally relate. Serendib, having straight hair is also the beauty standard in Sri Lanka. See, so that's good to know from an international perspective, a form of trauma, 100%. But I want to talk some more about that history, right? And why someone like me, JB says, I hung socks from her hair. Totally, right? I want to talk about that, why that is, though. Why would a younger version of me be praying so wholeheartedly for long, straight hair, right? Eventually, obviously, I did go natural and embrace my natural hair texture. And I remember I did this in high school. And I remember being in one of my high school math classes and hearing someone at the back of the room say, well, Sarah is so brave. And that stuck with me because I was like, why do we have to be brave to wear our hair the way it naturally grows from our scalp, right? Other women don't have to be brave to just let their hair grow from their scalp the way it wants to, right? But for some reason, me as a Black woman, it required courage to do that. And so what is really behind that? What does that really mean? Mixed Bloom Room says, me too. I had a yellow sweater and I would pretend it was blonde hair. Right, right. We have all, not all of us necessarily, but so many of us have been in that same boat. And so there actually was a post I wrote called Brave Love is Beautiful that was inspired years later but inspired by that comment that my class made that I was brave to wear my natural hair. And so why does it require so much bravery? Why does it require so much courage, for someone with my kind of hair to wear it naturally the way it grows? Well, first we know that hair is highly racialized, right? It is one of the physical features that is most closely associated with race, especially blackness or indigeneity of some sort. And it's right up there with skin tone, right? So I remember in some of my college courses reading old texts written during slavery, where it was imperative that they could identify who was black and who was not, for the very practical reason of knowing whether or not they could enslave them and keep them enslaved. And so in addition to looking at skin tone, one of the factors that was highly considered was their hair texture, right? I remember reading one, and no, I don't remember the text, but I remember the statement that, well, it's easy to become lighter over 1 or 2 generations, but your hair texture is gonna, give you away, right, if you have black ancestry. So they're basically saying that skin tone changes more easily from generation to generation than hair texture does. That was, some white man's opinion. But using that as advice to other slaveholders and slave owners and people who were part of that system, giving them that advice to help them identify, the black people in their, in their midst, the black people in their midst. In Sri Lanka, throughout primary, secondary, and high school, girls are forced to wear braids. And if there were any curls or frizz, girls would get scolded by teachers and they would tell their parents. So again, this is interesting to know. I don't think I ever knew that about Sri Lanka. So that's one of the main points I want to talk about is that's a form of institutionalized racism, right? That's institutionalized oppression. So not just perceptions of beauty, like, oh, you're the more popular girl amongst your friends at school because you have straight hair, but you're actually punished and reprimanded in the system itself because of how your hair works, right? And so in one of my comments, someone commented about that, how hair discrimination is highly a form of, significant institutional racism. We know the dress code policies at schools, working environments where they say, you can't. I remember my mom working at the bank one time. I'm not going to say which bank, although I should, right? Saying that you can't have hairstyles that showed your scalp, right? Because they didn't want black women wearing cornrows. So if you could see your scalp, then that was unprofessional, right? We know about kids at athletic events getting their locks cut off because, this is against the rules. And we find out in that particular news story that it wasn't even a rule, right? People saying that they can't participate in their high school graduation if they have a certain hair type, right? Kids being suspended from schools. People, especially in the news media, one commenter left a comment about working in TV news and feeling that pressure from not only your producers, but also the viewers of the news to wear your hair straight, right? I remember one story of a news anchor or news reporter wearing a short natural fro and receiving a lot of hatred on Facebook from the viewers saying they didn't like her hair. Fortunately for her, her producers and her network supported her and backed her up and defended her right to wear her natural hair. But certainly that is an exception to the rule, right? Most news channels, the producers and the company will push you to have that straight hair. Hello, Mary Jane Meadows. She says, yeah. Vincent, hey y'all, welcome Vincent. We're talking about hair. I know you like this topic. I think it's common in many colonized South Asian regions. Okay, so So that's one thing that maybe in the future going forward we talk more about, right? In terms of the colorism umbrella or the white supremacist umbrella, right? Is how hair discrimination plays out in places outside of the U.S. I know for me, I don't hear many conversations about hair discrimination in South Asian communities. I hear a lot about the skin bleaching and, you know, skin color and fairness creams and things like that, but I haven't heard as much conversation about the hair piece. No pun intended. So it's not just a racialized feature, but it's highly stigmatized, right? And there are some features of black hair that, certain textures of black hair, right? That are unique to black hair that make it stand out. And that's the fact that it can stand up, the fact that it holds its shape, that it can stick straight up, right? And then also the fact that it's immovable, that it stays put. So no matter how fast I shake my head, my hair ain't going nowhere, right? So those are two features of black hair that are particularly stigmatized because they are most indicative of the fact that it's not European hair or, you know, even Asian hair, right? Every other race of people on the planet has hair that does not do this, right? Doesn't stick up, it falls downward. Even if it's curly, even if other races of people have curly hair, those curls fall downward, right? And so we as black people, and yes, I am centering blackness in this hair discussion for anyone who's curious. We as black people have been told for centuries, make it lay down. That was one of the primary goals or the primary missions for, you know, hair care throughout, you know, black life was make it lay down, make it lay down. You know, you see images and stories of people trying to do this to their hair, like stay flat, stay flat. And that's because it's quintessentially black. And so there's this push to appear less black in so many ways, right? We're talking about hair here, but there are so many ways that we have been told we need to appear less black. And the sticking up part is definitely 100% a marker of your African ancestry or black DNA, right? And I'm not saying that all black people have the same hair texture. But if you do have hair texture that sticks up, it is a clear identifier of your racial heritage. And so we try to suppress that by quote unquote taming it. And then also think about the compliments. D1 says it rises to the sun. Yes, I like that perspective. We think about compliments. I remember being on the track team in high school, and if a girl was running and her ponytail swayed back and forth, people would comment about that. Like, oh my gosh, you know, you got that swing. Look at your ponytail swinging, right? If a black girl could have a ponytail that swings, then she was doing it. She was it. If your ponytail didn't swing, if it's just stayed up or, you know, didn't move in any way, then again, that's a feature of black hair that's seen as less valuable, less worthy, less attractive, right? I'm going to put up some more pictures, right? Because I said I'm going to kind of talk about my own hair story. So this was me in high school. See up there in the top left corner. So on Facebook, I can't share the screen necessarily, but on Instagram, I'm sharing some old pictures of myself. And then there's this one, right? I used to have longer hair. And so that's one aspect of the hair issue too, is the length of it. And because I had long straight hair at one point, when I went natural, people felt like it was a travesty. But I, you know, used to rock the big fro. I did the mohawk at one point. I had a curly top. I didn't call it a flat top. I called it a curly top because it wasn't flat. And then there was even that one time I had blue and gold braids, right? So that's the versatility of what black people do with our hair is amazing. Let me just say that. But the third feature of hair that is highly stigmatized is the length of the hair, right? And we assume that, black people's hair doesn't grow as long. Black people's hair doesn't grow as fast, which is actually a fallacy, right? Our hair grows at the same rate. It's just that the curl pattern of our hair makes it harder to retain the length. So it's still growing, but it's more susceptible to breakage and damage, right? Which means it doesn't get longer as quickly, but it's still growing just as quickly. Related to the length issue, right, is gender and femininity. We got to talk about that, right? Hair, the intersection of hair with color versus gender and femininity, right? So, bald-headed, nappy-headed, the derogatory terms, the ways that we shame Black women in particular for our hair. We know in this across races, white women are judged more harshly on their hair, right? But especially Black women, the shame of having not only natural hair, but having hair that is not long, right? We do this to ourselves as a result of what we've internalized from white culture, right? We adopted white people's perspective on our appearance, and so that's why we shame each other. That's why girls fawn over the girl in the class with the long curly hair or the long wavy hair, right? And for Black women in particular, I remember I had some really traumatic experiences in beauty shops and barbershops, which I know I'm going on a tangent here, but stick with me. So a lot of times we talk about beauty salons, beauty shops, and barbershops as being spaces where Black people go as a refuge, where Black people can find love and affirmation and community. And for me, as a dark-skinned Black woman with 4C hair, the beauty salon was not that for me. I did not enjoy the messages I received about skin tone. I did not appreciate the messages I received about hair at beauty salons and later at barbershops growing up, right? But I remember I don't have a picture of my really short hair here, but when I was doing almost like the buzz cut, like the really close cuts and fades, going to a beauty salon and the Black woman, saying, well, why do you want to cut it that short? You want to look like a man. And so that's one thing women in particular face when we think about going natural, when we think about wearing shorter hair and, heaven forbid, short natural hair. Because it's one thing to have short hair as long as it's still straight. But then if it's short and natural, oh my God, girl, you're going to look like a man, right? And so that is part of the fear too, not just in terms of beauty, but now my identity as a woman is being questioned, right? Being mistakenly called sir, right? Because especially early on when it was not normal to see Black women with short natural hair, all those things are part of the culture that make Black women afraid to embrace their natural hair, to embrace even waiting until your hair reaches a certain length before you wear it natural, right? So a lot of women, when they're growing out or transitioning, they'll wear protective styles, they'll wear braids, they'll wear weaves and wigs, or they'll, straighten it until it's long natural hair, right? And so even within the natural hair community, there's still stigma about not only certain hair textures, but also the length of the hair, right? Color narrative says guilty. Yeah, we've all been guilty. I don't know if you were on at the beginning when I was talking about my stories about, putting Mardi Gras beads on my ponytail to make it look longer or make it feel longer to pretend like I had long hair. But we've all been guilty of wanting to avoid the pain of going against white supremacist beauty standards, right? The culture is really, really serious about making us feel ashamed of our natural appearance as Black women in particular. So it's not, don't feel guilty or bad about that. There's a whole centuries-long system in place to make you feel that way. Jandel on Facebook says, people pass judgment on natural hair when it should be freeing. We sometimes perpetuate oppression even in the liberation of wearing natural hair by basically saying natural but not that natural. Or what you're gonna do with your hair. Ooh, look at that question right there. What you gonna do with that? What you gonna do with your hair? Oh, I gotta tell y'all the story about my high school graduation. During graduation practice, I was wearing my fro, and this black boy, of course, turned to me and said, "So what you gonna do with your hair?" Y'all know what my response was. I said, "I'm gonna put a hat on it." Again, another instance, where someone was trying to shame me for my natural hair, and this was 2003. I graduated from high school in 2003, so there was a natural hair uptick, but it wasn't. We weren't nearly where we are now in 2020 in terms of embracing natural hair. But yeah, what Jendel's point about on Facebook about I want to go natural as long as it looks like the model in the magazine. I've heard a lot of women say that. Like, I would go natural if my hair looked like yours. Not my hair, but like, someone with a looser curl pattern, someone with 3A hair, right? Or again, hair that was really curly but still moved. I didn't stick straight up, right? So a lot of women will say, I would go natural if my hair looked like that model's hair, or if my hair was a certain way. And so again, is it natural for the sake of being natural, or is it natural to just try to achieve yet another popular look, right? And we have to ask that for ourselves. Like, only we know whether or not we are going natural to just embrace our natural hair, or if we're going natural because our natural hair fits into the narrative of what good hair is, right? Vincent says, yes, my dad would say that to us a lot. What you gonna do with your hair? What you gonna do with that? Even things like edges, and this is not part of my notes. I'm really riffing here. But because it's my last workshop for 2020, I'm gonna just let it all hang out, okay? But even the trends of laying your edges are laid. I love when people style their edges really uniquely. It's fun, it's cute, but we have to ask ourselves, are we doing it so that the natural hair texture doesn't show? Is it laying your edges just another way of concealing your natural hair texture, right? When I used to straighten my hair, there was a thing called new growth, right? So the straight part would stay straight. That's why it's called a permanent. But when the new hair grew, it would be natural, it would be curly, right? So it's like, you got your new growth showing. What edges really are, right? The flyaways. Called it baby hair. Yes. Yeah, baby hair. The flyaways, sorry, y'all got, okay. That, white women see as like, oh, like young white girls, they have flyaways, right? And they just let their flyaways fly away. But black people, we have to tame that. Like, no, can't have any loose edges. Especially because they're more likely to be the representative of our natural hair texture, right? And family members, friends, policing, LDJNYC, absolutely, the edges. Yeah, a lot of it comes from family, and because they feel comfortable enough with you to say those things. Obviously, the guy that I went to high school with who said that didn't care. But your family in particular feels really comfortable telling you to do something with your head, calling your hair nappy, and that's the fact that it starts at home, the sort of shame around hair is indicative of how internalized it is indicative of how for generations the white supremacist perspective on what hair should look like has persisted, right? So it's been a part of our cultures for so long that even before we watch TV or look at a magazine, our parents, our mothers, our grandparents are checking to see if the baby has good hair. I hope the baby gets hair like her daddy. I hope the baby has good hair like her mom, or whoever, whatever parent has the quote unquote so-called good hair. You know, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the grandparents saying, well, I hope the baby has so-and-so's hair texture. And when the baby comes out, you're like, oh yeah, the baby gonna have good hair. And when the hair turns, I've heard people say that too. I'm airing out all our dirty laundry. I'm sorry, y'all. When the baby's, oh, your hair is turning. Because most babies, when they come out, their hair is a little, you know, a lot of babies, their hair might be a little straight or, you know, fine. And then they'll say things like, oh, your hair is turning, and it's a bad thing, that it's no longer the soft, fine baby hair that it was. And I don't mean soft, as in kinky, forcey hair is not soft. That's a myth. We also have to undo these myths, right, amongst ourselves, that natural hair is not soft. Like, natural hair is hella soft. Like, softer than soft. Cray, Shay Shay. That's a cool screen name. I like that. Says that part, L. L, DJ NYC said yes, and getting upset about your reflection of them. Ooh, okay, now I see why you said that part. Getting upset about your reflection of them. And so let me tell you, anyone who goes natural and gets resistance from it, they are projecting their own shame onto you, right? So their own shame about their hair, their own shame about their appearance, is triggered when you dare to accept yourself. How dare you think your hair is beautiful when I don't think my hair is beautiful? That's where some of that is coming from. Cray, Shay, my hair is hard AF, no apologies. Well, there you go, right? If it's yours, let it be what it is, unapologetically. LDJNYC says, LOL, love y'all. Hello, welcome. My mom is going through it now, all those years of shade. Ooh. Vincent says, air it out, y'all. That's the only way we do better. Tiffany says, I've often heard many of these statements from older family members. It's coming from a place of fear and love simultaneously. Okay, Tiffany Saunders on Facebook. So we got to acknowledge the love piece, right? A lot of times the respectability politics that we have in our community comes from a place of a protective place, a place of love, thinking that, oh, we want you to look like you're well cared for. I don't want you leaving the house and people thinking that nobody's taking care of you. I don't want you to leave the house and look like you're a neglected child. So let me do something with your hair, right? Or I don't want you to ruin your chances of getting a job. So don't go to the interview with your hair like that. Or don't do XYZ with your hair like that, right? So that's part of the burden that Black people carry, is not feeling like we can't embrace our natural selves because there's a real threat in the external world, right? Or there are real consequences in terms of how people perceive us in the external world, right? And we all have to ask ourselves, like, to what extent am I willing to be a lightning rod for change? What I mean by that is, am I willing to be judged as looking like a pickaninny in order to create space for other women and young girls who want to wear their hair, right? I remember beauticians and stuff saying, well, you don't want to walk around looking like a pickaninny. And so the Brave Love post too, I'm gonna have to repost it. I've posted like some quotes from it, but that is the question we have to ask ourselves every day. Am I up for the challenge of facing possible rejection? Am I up for the challenge of facing possible judgment, or even guaranteed judgment, guaranteed rejection? Am I up for that? Am I going to put myself out there knowing that I'm going to get this kind of backlash, right? Also knowing, however, that that's the only way culture is going to change. That's the only way society is going to change, is if some of us are willing to be called nappy-headed, bald-headed, you-know-whats, right? And so for those of us who are up for that challenge, we can blaze the trail for people who, for whatever reason, are not there yet, right? Or either because they literally haven't been born yet, or because they're still just unpacking, their own, feelings and beliefs, right, about hair and about their appearance. Let me read some of these comments. Color narratives and also Black hair in the workplace and schools. Yes, I was talking about some of the news stories about kids getting suspended. And again, it's not just hair texture, it's also hairstyle. So regardless of your hair texture, you will be policed if you have quote unquote Black hairstyle. So even if you have 2C hair, 2A hair, type 2 hair as a Black woman and you want to wear it in cornrows, people will tell you that's unprofessional because it's a Black hairstyle, right? So Black people, we're dealing with it in terms of texture and length and the style itself, right? So if I had 4C hair, but I chose to to brush it back and, maybe braid it into something more tamed, then that might be less offensive to some folks, right? So it's like threefold, right? Even if you do have straighter or a looser curl pattern, if you choose to wear a traditionally Black hairstyle, you're still policed by that. You can still be suspended from school. You can still be told you can't work here. You can still be told any number of things, right? That you can't participate in graduation and that sort of thing. Ari Julian says yes to being a lightning rod for change. Let's talk colorism. Welcome. Elizabeth says color narratives. Yes, that whole idea of professional being as close to whiteness, clothing, body, hair, makeup, so frustrating and anti-Black. 100%. Yes, Elizabeth. And behaviors and cultures too, Elizabeth. Color narratives. Yes, when it comes to clothing, they used to tell the Black teachers not to wear short skirts because we have different body shapes than the white female teachers. Ooh, y'all, see? See? Oh, wait, I'm getting a little stirred up about the policing of Black women's bodies. So let me breathe in, whew, breathe out. Okay, Cray Cray Shay Shay. I'm gonna have to say that, I'm gonna say that your screen name is for fun all the time. Tame and wild. Those words burn me up when applied to my hair. I'm not feral. That's true. That is like it's not just the taming of the hair or the attempt to tame your hair, but it's the idea that you need to hide that part of you that identifies you as Black as much as possible, right? So you don't even have to use words like taming, right? You can use a word like suppress. You can use a word like hide. You can use a word like cover up. You can, any of these other words that say, we don't want to see that part of you that doesn't uplift whiteness as the norm, that doesn't uplift or cosign or confirm that whiter is better, right? So yeah, I like that perspective on the vocabulary as well. So Elizabeth saying yes, yes, yes to all of these. Yeah, y'all showing out for this, season finale of Wednesday workshops. Let me see what else did I have on here. Oh yeah, so one of the things I'll say before I move into how we can change these narratives and attitudes about hair is also, I kind of talked about it too, the relationship to respectability politics, but also classism and respectability politics around hair. And so we think about the culture of Black organizations and like cotillions and ebony balls and Black churches and like these really high society Black organizations, right, that not only use the paper bag test, but they also use things like the comb test, right? So they weren't just taking for your skin tone, they also wanted your hair to be of a certain texture, of a certain length, right, and a certain style of hair. that for many black women, we thought it made us more acceptable, more presentable. And because black women in particular have so many stereotypes around being less feminine in particular, hair, again, like that connection to, you know, gender politics and sex politics and, you know, dating and marriage markets, the stereotypes about black women looking less feminine, right, in particular, are, you know, why we wanted to show up in a certain way, right? I will, you know, a nod to our men, to our brothers as well. Black men have a lot of shame around their hair too, and they want waves. I venture to say there's not a person on this, watching this live, who doesn't know a black man who wanted waves at some point in his life. And we probably know a lot of black women who wanted to date men with waves in their hair. I like a man with waves in his hair. Y'all. The layers. Oh my gosh, the layers. It is, we don't have enough time to get it all out in 1 hour. But yeah, so to my brothers as well, you can be handsome and extremely attractive without waves, with the BDBs. That was one of the derogatory terms. Look at that boy with the BDBs. The kitchen, you got BDBs in your kitchen. I don't know if that was just like a South Louisiana, Baton Rouge thing, or if other people heard that phrase as well. But you don't want the BDBs. You got to brush it out. Brush it out. Keep brushing and wear your wave cap. But black men do not have as much pressure because it's not a matter of appearing feminine or not, right? And it's not a matter of the length of the hair, right? So black men don't have to, and actually for, you know, a certain period of time, that was part of the classism and respectability politics, was for black men to keep their hair short. To hide the hair texture of it. So if you have a really close fade as a black man, then people won't be able to see that really, really kinky hair texture. So just keep it cut close, because otherwise, you know, the kinkiness will start to show and become apparent. But also, just thinking about professionalism and ideas of professionalism for black men, it was also cut close, you know, close shaves, you know, don't have, you know, your hair out in a fro, don't have locks, right? Don't have classically black hairstyles like the wop, the ramp. I don't know what that hairstyle was called. But, you know, even like when, you know, black men were putting parts and designs in their hair, all of that was seen as unprofessional because it was something that white men didn't do. Well, white men aren't doing it, so it's unprofessional, right? If white men's hair don't do it, then it's still unprofessional. So white men can't have flat tops. So let's, you know, ban flat tops at work or in schools, right? But yeah, let me see what some comments have been coming in. Even body hair. Who's heard of taco meat? Yes, we've heard of that. Nope, up north too. Oh, okay, LDJ NYC saying the BDBs was up north too. Woo! Some of the things we heard in the 90s. Many dudes embrace bald heads for this reason too. Crazy, cray shay shay. The bald head is the safest, right? Because you don't know what the hair texture actually is. You can be taken for a whole other ethnic group without your hair showing. Ooh, cray shay shay, spilling the tea on the gram. Yes. Oh, it's called the Gumby. Okay, yes, the Gumby. When I was teaching high school, the Gumby had came back in style and all the boys had Gumbies. But yeah, that point, cray shay shay, you can be taken for a whole other ethnic group without your hair showing. Absolutely. And that goes back to my little nod to history about like how white people relied heavily on hair texture. During slavery, they relied heavily on hair texture to determine who was black for that very reason, right? Because a black man with a bald head could be perceived as Native American, right? And if it was illegal to police Native Americans, then how do we prove, not to police, well, maybe that was an appropriate slip, but to enslave Native Americans, then how can we prove you're actually black if you have a bald head? And then other, you can be mistaken for other races as well. All right, so hair love. We spilled a lot of tea about the stigma and the conditioning around hair. I'm gonna throw this up again really quickly. So for anyone watching, this is the finale, the season finale. There will be another season, don't worry. And in addition to hair, my theme is deep conditioning versus deconditioning, right? So I just wanted to put that up there. Deep conditioning versus deconditioning. And maybe are those two things related, right? Tell them cray, cray, shay, shay in these slips. So hair love, right? That's the name of a movie, right? I think of a animated film that came out recently and won a lot of awards. But so how do we reclaim our autonomy over our hair, our appreciation, our love, our pride in our natural hair, right? What even natural hair that doesn't move and shake. I remember showing my mom a video of a natural hair blogger who did a remake of a Bruno Mars song. And like throughout the whole video, all the women had natural hair, but throughout the whole video, they were like shaking their hair. And my mom was like, well, it's still like, taking pride in the fact that your hair moves, right? Like it's still that feature of the natural hair that is on display, right? That's being shown off, right? As desirable, admirable, right? And so how do we love hair in all of its forms, but especially the most stigmatized hair types, right? And so similar to colorism, right? We know that all shades are beautiful, just like all hair is good hair, right? So we say all shades are beautiful, we say all hair is good hair. And that's true. That is categorically true, no arguments, period, all hair is good hair. But we also are acknowledging in this moment that not all hair types are equally stigmatized, equally policed, right? Can we acknowledge that? So for, type 4 hair in particular, right, would be the most stigmatized and most policed hair type because it is the least like European hair or even, Asian American hair. There is a need to learn and understand the natural hair type, right? One way to undo the stigmas, one way to decondition is to actually understand what natural black hair is, especially 4C hair, right? To understand curl patterns, right? To understand fineness and to understand what growth versus length actually is, right? And on TV, in movies, we see white women washing their hair all the time. But even in the media, we don't have representations of black hair care routines. We don't have representations of black women really discussing what they do to take care of their hair unless it's being mocked. Of Blackish, where the daughter was getting her hair done, and they had this scene where they had like 5 or 6 combs stuck in her head. Black people need to stop making images like that. We need to stop perpetuating the idea that was created by white people in the first place, that our natural hair is unmanageable. And first of all, the concept of being manageable is another issue altogether, right? But that somehow you just can't do anything with natural black hair. A lot of that, we have opportunities, right, as black creators. My Facebook just suddenly stopped, which is not good. Okay, let's see. Okay, well, I need to keep going because I only have 9 minutes left on Instagram. So, our shrinkage versus growth and link, absolutely. And it's the epitome of Mave Me, TF Alone Hair, 4C, less is more with 4C, styling so much of the time. Yes, true. So, a lot of styling and manipulation can cause more damage. Being Haitian, we learned about culture early. Ethnicity is something I learned about early. My dad talked to us about this early. Love what you are and where you come from. That's true. So let's see. I don't know. Maybe Facebook can still see me. Can y'all still see me on Facebook? I don't know. But anyway, so again, you know, those of us who are creating images of Black life and Black culture, one of the things we can do is to show images, display images of what healthy Black hair care looks like, right? Just like every, you know, TV show or movie, there's a scene where there's a white person washing their hair in the shower. Show an example of what washing natural 4C hair looks like, of conditioning and combing, instead of making it always be the butt of the joke. For real at Crochet, and what about this hair flip in Beyonce against the backdrop of African tribal dress, dance, and rituals? What about all these braids? The hair flip is a big one. Yeah, for all the same reasons that I mentioned, right? Like that flippability is one of the biggest reasons people don't want 4C hair, because it's not flippable, at least not in its, you know, just out state, right? I could do things like I can do twists or plaits, all right, that will flip, but still, it'll be on YouTube. You can share it from there. No, actually, I won't be able to share the rest of it on YouTube because I use the Facebook recording to share to YouTube. So if Facebook isn't recording, then I won't be able to share it on the whole thing on YouTube. But with the 5 minutes I have left on Instagram, also for homework, let me just get to the homework and affirmations. I want you to write a love letter to your roots, to your actual roots, okay? So find and create your own hair rituals. On a live with Naturally High Hair that I watched recently, she noted that your hair care rituals can be sort of a meditative practice, right? And so for you, you can either find a hair care ritual or create your own, you know, ritual for caring for your natural hair or whatever hair you have. And it doesn't have to be a daily ritual. It doesn't have to be weekly. It could be something you do once a month. But take it as an opportunity to embrace and pay homage to your ancestors, to your literal roots. So you're literally expressing love for your literal hair, the roots of your hair, but also your ancestral roots, right? So saying like, I am proud of the lineage, the ancestry that gives me this hair, right? And so I'm going to take intentional care of it, an intentional love letter. And then the affirmation it's a few parts. But it says, I love the hair I was born with. My natural hair is enough. My hair is beautiful just the way it naturally grows from my scalp. And I am worthy of every second and every cent I invest in my hair care. So I will leave you all with that. I plait my hair all the time. I make it a point not to add hair. This is what 4C hair looks like and does. Absolutely cray shay shay. When I do my twists and my twists are sticking up in all different directions, I'm like, this is what my hair naturally does. And I'm going to be a lightning rod possibly, but I want people to know that there's nothing to be ashamed of it. It's literally what it naturally does. Natural hair is beautiful. Amen. Someone had asked where they could see it to share. Where they could see this. So on Instagram is fine. Instagram, y'all are good. This will be on my Instagram page in full, the full recording. And it'll be in the IGTV story, so you can get to it from my page. I'll have to figure out how to get it to YouTube now that the Facebook recording canceled on me. That's really sad. But your Instagram is good. Gotta run. Great talk. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much for this all the time. Beautiful. All right. And Graham fam, I love y'all so much. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon if you have time. And be in touch on Instagram stories and on the Instagram posts. So even though this is my last live for this year, I'm still definitely going to be visible and around and engaging with you all. Okay? Bye.